All right, so just to review, our driving question for our whole unit is how do the structures of an organism allow it to survive in its environment? So yesterday we talked about behavior and function. Yesterday we observed larvae and we observed their body parts. So we observed their structures. Now we're going to talk a little bit about their environment. We're going to talk about their environment. So I don't have any room on this page, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my page. It's okay to write on the back of your page. I encourage you to write on your back of the page. We always start with our date, and our date is 9/16. Right now we're going to be talking about the mealworm's needs. So let's go ahead and title that our paper. Mealworm needs. All right, so what a mealworm, and it says all living organisms, not just mealworms, need 4 things. So they need 4 things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a list. So I'm going to put stars by it, 4 things that the organisms need. And the organism that we're looking for right now is our mealworm, but this is all organisms. 4 things. So 4 things that they need is air, water. I'm going to put little bullets. Air, water, food. Oh, that's 5 things, isn't it? 1, 2, 3. No, that's 4 things. Food and space for a shelter. That's what it, like a home. I'm going to put that right under it. All right, so those are 4 things. So for the mealworm, what you saw was a container. There has to be holes punched in the lid for air. The food, we got wheat and oat bran and potato, carrot, and apple. And what is special about the mealworm is that it doesn't need to drink water. It gets its water from the food. So it doesn't get it from the wheat and the oat bran. It gets it from the potato, carrot, and apple. So the mealworm doesn't need to drink water. It gets the water from its food. Not all organisms are that way. Okay, so all of this together, all point to environment. All right, so when we talk about the environment, this is all the things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about how do they get their air, their water, their food, what kind of shelter, where do they live. The environment is living and non-living things that surround an organism. So not just the things that are alive, we need to think about the things that are non-living. So I'm going to add that here. So this is both living things in the environment, like food maybe, and non-living. Like if they need to live in a rock or under a rock, that would be non-living. So the environment is both the living things that they need, like the plants, or like their shelter that's not living. Okay, so each of these things on this list, now I'm making like a mind map. I'm not writing in sentences. So if this is how my mind map works, and when you do a mind map, you have to make it so you understand it. So all of this, each of these 4 things are environmental factors. So I'm going to put a bigger arrow. So this is environmental And this is going to be important. This one's going to be a word that I want you to really understand because we're going to talk about it. Environmental factor. That means if we change any of those four things, that's going to change their environment. That's going to change their environment. So if we change any of those four things, it's going to change that organism's environment. So we are going to watch as we change some of the factors in the environment to see what happens to the mealworms. All right, so one of the things that we're going to look at tomorrow is if we change the air temperature. So the environmental factor that we're going to play with is the air. So we are going to change the temperature. And the question that we have right is, what would happen to the mealworms if the environmental factor changed? What if it were colder? How could we find out if the environmental factor of air temperature makes a difference in the structures and the behavior of mealworms? So what we're going to do, I'm going to draw a little line here because this is where we're going to be doing our thoughts. In your notes, what I want you to do is, the question is, how could we find out if the environmental factor of air temperature makes a difference? So right here, we're going to put air temperature. And we want to make it colder. So your job's ways to make it colder. Okay, so your job is to come up, what are some ways we can make the air temperature colder? Just some ideas. What are some ideas that we can make it colder? And then we will talk about some of those ways when we meet again. Make sure you write all these notes, and this is your assignment for today, to fill in ways that would make it colder.